Coming up on Lawmakers, a controversial charter schools bill passes the House, as well as a bill granting more concealed carry rights to gun owners. And globally minded students rally at the Capitol. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, and Wandy Lawson and David Zelski.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, the House votes to create a constitutional amendment to prohibit the governor from shifting money around in the state budget.
And Grady Hospital legislation is approved by committee. But first, our top story tonight, a bill granting more concealed rights to gun owners passes the House again. In a surprise move this afternoon, the State House takes up and amends House Bill 89. When it passed the Senate a couple of weeks ago, it was known as the Guns in Parking Lots bill. But lawmaker Sandra Parrish joins us live to say that it's now much more than that. Sandra.
And Wandy, Representative Tim Bearden, who brought the original House Bill 89 last year, only wanted gun owners to be able to carry their weapons anywhere in their cars. As it stands tonight, not only can concealed weapons permit holders keep them in their cars at work where businesses offer publicly accessible parking, but actually carry them in most public places.
When I testified in front of the Senate Rules Committee, I told them that they had a great opportunity to take advantage of making sure that we do something meaningful for Georgia firearms license holders. And a lot of things many people don't understand is Georgia is the most restrictive carry state in the nation.
Representative Tim Bearden successfully amended House Bill 89 on the floor to allow concealed weapons permit holders to carry them not only in public parks, but churches, restaurants where alcohol is served, and on public transportation.
We're not trying to say that in bars that you can carry. But if you take your family out to a restaurant and you have that Georgia firearms license permit, you should be able to defend yourself and your family from the time you walk from the car into that building, while you're in the building, and when you walk back out.
Is it not true then that this bill provides greater protections for adults in bars than they do for children in zoos and public places and public parks?
No, because gun-free zones, such as the one in Utah at the mall, the gun-free zone at Luby's Cafeteria in Texas, in Killeen, Texas, where 23 was killed and 20 was wounded. The gun-free zone in Virginia Tech didn't protect nobody, but law-abiding citizens with a firearms license permit that has the right to carry and defend, between them and the police, maybe someone's lives could be saved.
Gun safety advocates were horrified at today's developments.
This maneuver on the part of Mr. Bearden, which the House approved, really significantly endangers people in a number of places where they could have been assured previously that firearms were not present.
We finally did something that we've never done before. We gave the Georgia firearms license permit holders and that GFL some meaning now in Georgia. This bill goes back to the Senate. Georgia gun rights now lay in the hands of the Senate. I hope they will immediately take this bill up and allow this very important legislation for law-abiding citizens in this state to pass and get it to the governor.
Now, I spoke with Senate leaders this afternoon who tell me HB 89, which already has faced a tough battle this session, likely now faces an even bigger challenge. Reporting live, I'm Sandra Parrish for Lawmakers.
Thanks so much, Sandra. In other news, the House votes today to offer an alternate route for groups and companies seeking to establish charter schools. In addition to applying to local school boards or to the State Board of Education, House Bill 881 allows petitions to be submitted to a 7-member charter commission. According to bill sponsor Jan Jones, the bill also provides a more equitable way of funding charter schools.
This is even better than what we do with the 5 mil share, because unlike with the 5 mil share, some would say we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think it's probably an appropriate decision of the state, since we are charged with providing an adequate education. With regard to this, we'll look across the state, but the money will stay locally to fund those taxpayers' children within that community.
Opponents of the measure, however, worried that it will create an unequal education system.
This bill allows us to create 2 classes of schools in our state. And how long will it be before the lawsuit comes that says you cannot treat my child in this charter system that has been funded by the state of Georgia differently from you treat a child who is going to a school on the local level?
But if you would notice, a lot of the people who are supporting House Bill 881 are people who actually have children in school or who spend time in schools. And while your children may be gone and on with their lives and having their families, they're gone through college, I have a 9-month-old who deserves to have a quality public education.
After more than 2 hours of House debate, HB 881 passed by a vote of 119 to 48. It now moves to the Senate. Lawmakers will bring you additional coverage of today's debate later in our broadcast.
Legislation pertaining to Grady Memorial Hospital continues to move through the General Assembly. And Lawmakers Bridget Snap is live with the latest. Bridget.
David, Senator David Schaefer is sponsoring 3 pieces of legislation aimed at ensuring Grady accountability. All 3 unanimously passed the Senate Governmental Oversight Committee this afternoon.
The first piece of Senator Schaefer's legislation creates a Grady Oversight Committee to be made up of members of the General Assembly.
In 1999, the last time the state of Georgia, I think, spent $50 million bailing out of Grady, that was to be the last time that we were to do that. And Grady resisted any sort of legislative oversight, saying that it wasn't necessary. Now, 10 years later, all that money is gone. The hospital's in a deeper hole, and they're actually complaining that they've been neglected. And I think that the creation of this oversight committee will make sure that they're never neglected again.
Senator Schaefer's second piece of legislation, called the Public Hospital Authority Act, would prohibit people with financial ties to the hospital from serving in a governing capacity.
I think this is a common sense proposal that will give Grady a strong, independent board that will fight for the very best deal for Grady as an institution in each of its contract negotiations. It's something that's long overdue in this environment of Sarbanes-Oxley.
The third piece of legislation, sponsored by Senator Schaefer, urges Grady to encourage use of its services by its employees.
Virtually every other hospital in the country uses lower copays or deductibles to encourage their own employees to make use of the services of the hospital. Grady does not. It spends $18 million a year providing health care for its 5,000 employees, and much of that health care is bought at institutions other than Grady.
Senator Schaefer's legislation next goes to Senate rules. Of course, Grady made headlines earlier this week when its board voted Monday to take the first steps to transfer power over daily policy decisions to a new nonprofit corporation. Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle said earlier today that he feels this is a good move for Grady.
We're confident that Grady can turn around. We're very optimistic. Certainly the $200 million that the business community has put on the table to incentivize this program and to really save Grady, I think is very significant.
The hospital board acted again on Tuesday when it fired hospital CEO Otis Story and appointed board chairperson Representative Pam Stevenson to temporarily replace him. Calling the appointment a conflict of interest, Representative Mike Jacobs filed legislation yesterday that would prohibit a board member from serving in an executive position at the hospital.
We tried to reach Representative Stevenson for comment, but she has not yet responded. Reporting live, I'm Bridget Snap for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And a group of House and Senate members joined Lieutenant Governor Cagle at a press conference this afternoon to support 2 recently introduced health care initiatives. Lieutenant Governor Cagle begins explaining Part 1, the safety net clinics.
The idea in which a retired physician or retired dentist or ophthalmologist that wants to donate their facility and their equipment to organizations like this, to where individuals can really help give care to those that need it the most, is really alive and well. In many communities, we're experiencing these popping up, and it's an initiative that we want to encourage. And in doing so, we're putting forward grant programs, $30,000 for planning grants, and then alongside that $150,000 for existing new types of clinics that would be opening up across the state as well.
Senator Lee Hawkins is actually a volunteer dentist at one of these safety net clinics.
You know, these people are just down on their luck on a certain period of time. We see children, adults, and it's a very good network. That, coupled with the Health Access Initiative group that we have, which are specialists that help pick up patients after we see them at Good News at Noon and continue their care. They couple this with the Northeast Georgia Medical Center and Public Health. And together, as a team, we see and treat numerous patients.
Part 2 of this healthcare initiative is the Georgia Health Marketplace.
The Georgia Health Marketplace will include a trust fund of state dollars and matching dollars to be spent exclusively on advertising and public relation campaigns to urge Georgians to purchase health insurance. We anticipate $1 to $2 million that will go in this trust fund that will energize and encourage individuals to have really the choices that they're looking for at a price by which they can afford.
Representative Joe Wilkinson and Senate Majority Leader Tommy Williams will carry this legislation in their respective houses.
The House today moved to block the governor from shifting money around in the state budget. House Resolution 1025 would require the governor to approve or veto appropriations and or the intended purposes of those expenditures.
When we put something into the document and it is approved by the House and the Senate, the governor must either agree with it and put that money where it was intended or veto it, which he has the right to do, but he cannot simply just redirect it. I hope that you will support House Resolution 1025, and I will yield for questions. Seeing no questions.
You do have a couple of questions. Representative Levitas has a question to your right and in the back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, under the way our Constitution has been interpreted by at least one of the chambers of the General Assembly, let's say the governor were to veto a provision and this House were to act promptly on the override. What was your understanding of what would be the consequences? Would the Senate then, should it then, and under our Constitution, then vote immediately to override that veto?
Well, the way I understood immediately, yes, sir, they should. The way I understand immediately is, yes, sir, they should act immediately. And I do not think that we have seen that to date, but you know, I cannot predict how the other body will react to the word immediately, but I hope that with this clarification of the language, they will at least feel like they're a part of the process, maybe.
The House adopted H.R. 1025 by a vote of 167 to 1. If approved by the Senate, the constitutional amendment would require voter approval in November. As we reported earlier, the House today approved a new charter school application process. During the debate, Alpharetta legislator Jan Jones raised the ire of the Clayton County delegation while trying to make the point that the passage of House Bill 881 would not cause a rush of charter applications.
You're assuming that everyone happen to have belief in our local school boards that they're not going to provide such poor schools that no one's going to want to go there. Although when we have school systems like Clayton County Schools that's being, you know, on the verge of losing its accreditation, 52,000 students, it wouldn't be such a bad thing in Clayton County if we had so many charter schools that all the students left and all the school board had to do was levy the school tax, because right now they're not supplying a very good school education to those students.
The first thing that I must do, after speaking with my sister Jan Jones, the sponsor of this bill, I must set the record straight. I'm certain that it was not her intent to give a misconception about Clayton County Public Schools, but I'm going to set the record straight just in case. Clayton County Public Schools have produced some wonderful, wonderful young leaders. One of the things that we know for a fact is that our Oliver Elementary School last month took first place, second place, and third place out of 4,000 Georgia schools in the state stock market competition. Oliver Elementary is a Clayton County public school. We are very proud. We want to talk about Riverdale High School, who for the last several years has taken Technical College of the Year every year of Clayton County Public School. Now, I understand that sometimes we get up here and we get excited and we say some things that don't come out the way we mean them. But I don't want anybody that may be watching at home or the children that are watching us on the internet to think that we didn't stand up for what we produce in Clayton County.
I admire the dedication of the Clayton County delegation in supporting their schools. They're to be admired for that. And I wish all of us would take it as seriously as they do. And I certainly know that particularly during this difficult time as the Clayton County accreditation is being reviewed, it will take all of our efforts, and particularly theirs and the educators and the parents, to make sure that they continue to have a school system and education that they can be proud of.
A bill outlawing activities associated with dogfighting passed out of Senate committee. And Lawmakers Andy Dixon joins us live with the details. Andy, what's the latest?
David, the goal of the legislation is to broaden penalties for dogfighting-related activity to include transport, ownership, and possession of any dog to be used for dogfighting. Violation of the code would be considered a felony and could be punished by imprisonment as well as hefty fines. The committee amended the bill before it was passed to outlaw advertising dogfighting events. Senator Chip Rogers sponsored the legislation in the Senate.
I think we have finally, hopefully, reached very near to the finish line. The Senate has passed out dogfighting legislation on 2 separate occasions. This is now the 3rd time coming out of this committee, so we're very happy. Again, we're making the statement that dogfighting is not acceptable in Georgia. If you're fighting dogs in Georgia, you need to leave or we're going to throw you in jail. There's really no easier way to put that. Unfortunately, this state has become a haven for dogfighting because our laws did not address the issue as it was playing itself out in our communities. And dogfighting is something that should never take place in a civilized society. And the actions that we're taking here today will help bring that to an end.
There was little dissent about the bill. However, the state agriculture commissioner did voice concern about the law's jurisdiction.
I just want to make sure by maybe some mistake, and mistakes do sometimes happen here on Capitol Hill since I've been around a while, did not interfere with our excellent Animal Protection Act. We're in the business of making sure people take good care of the animals, do not abuse them. 2 years ago, we passed a law here to make it a felony if you abuse your dogs, and I just want to make sure there wasn't any overlapping of that particular statute. And I think once we get through looking at it, it'll be clean and everybody will be happy, and we'll continue to do our job, and the folks that will enforce the dogfighting bill will be able to take charge.
The bill also provides penalties for observers of dogfights and those who gamble on the games. House Bill 301 passed in the House on Monday by a margin of 165 to 2. The bill now goes to the Senate floor for a vote. Reporting live, I'm Andy Dixon for Lawmakers.
Thanks so much, Andy. The Senate Finance Committee today approved Senate Resolution 687 to replace ad valorem taxes with a 1% sales tax. Carolyn Nyaga talked to the bill sponsor, Senate Majority Whip Mitch Seabaugh, and filed this report.
687 would allow local taxing jurisdictions, that be a city, a county, or school board, to offer up for a vote for those voters in their district to be able to institute a 1% sales tax, and that would go and offset property taxes. So they could see property tax relief, and instead they would pay a sales tax to go for either the city, the county, or for the school system. And simply that's what the bill does. It provides local control. It allows flexibility for those people who want property tax relief to have more options for them to decide how they want to raise revenue for the services that they demand. There's a lot of people that have contacted me that would like to see a sales tax instead of property tax. They feel that would be able to address the needs of the county or the city or the school board much better and more adequately.
Some education advocates oppose House Resolution 900, also known as a Great Plan, which would eliminate property taxes as a base for educational funding. Senator Seabaugh says Senate Resolution 687 will not reduce dollars for education.
Well, I think that the point that they're trying to make, and that it's shifting a tax burden, is that there are a lot of counties that have homestead exemptions for, like, senior citizens. And what they haven't looked at in the detail of the bill, that what we do is we keep the sales tax on food exempt. And when you look at lower income individuals and a lot of retirees, almost all of their money goes for housing, food, and medicine. And what we've done in this bill is to protect the fact that food cannot be taxed for this purpose.
Voters will be asked to decide whether to replace local ad valorem taxes with a 1% local sales tax.
If the resolution passes both House and Senate, the measure will be placed on a November referendum. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Caroline Nyaga.
And 2 pieces of legislation seeking to create the city of Dunwoody failed to pass out of the House Governmental Affairs Committee this evening. Senate Bill 82, which would allow for a referendum to create the city of Dunwoody, failed. Another measure, Senate Bill 83, was tabled, and we'll have coverage of that committee meeting tomorrow night on Lawmakers.
Governor Sonny Perdue today announced the filing of legislation to eliminate the state portion of property taxes. The initiative was unveiled by the governor in his State of the State address 2 weeks ago. If the legislation passes, voters will have the opportunity to vote in a referendum as early as November. The statewide ballot question would read, shall the Constitution of the state of Georgia be amended so as to eliminate the state's power to annually levy an ad valorem tax on tangible property for any purpose except defending the state in an emergency, but to provide for the state's continued administrative role in the levy of ad valorem taxes by local governments. The legislation will be carried by Representative Jim Cole, one of the governor's floor leaders in the House.
We'd like to recommend a website that's a valuable resource for information about the Georgia General Assembly. Go to www.legis.ga.gov. That website is a great research tool we at Lawmakers use on a regular basis. And House Speaker Pro Tem Mark Burkhalter and Georgia Congressman Jack Kingston of Savannah were joined by several fellow legislators today, including a couple of Democrats, to show support for Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Now, even though John McCain won the Florida primary and is leading in most of the polls, Burkhalter remains optimistic that Governor Romney will emerge victorious, at least in Georgia, on Super Tuesday.
I really don't take any credence in the polls. They're fluid. It's 21 states in one day. I don't know how you legitimately poll that and say this person's going to get X percent in Georgia. So we have a broader base support than any other candidate, more organized, more volunteers, and I'll take my chances with that.
We have a little bit of partisan gridlock from time to time. We need somebody who has worked with real Democrats, real hardcore liberal Democrats, and still can come together to get something done. I do not believe there's another candidate who is able to do that and still stay conservative while doing it. We do know there's been a McCain-Kennedy immigrations amnesty bill. We do know there's been a McCain-Lieberman, Al Gore type global warming bill. And we do know that there's been a McCain-Feingold bill that has empowered lots of outside groups outside of politics and not really reform campaign financing at all. But, you know, I can tell you as a Republican in Washington, I can reach over to Barney Frank any day of the week and pass his legislation as long as he writes it. So I don't think joint partnering with Ted Kennedy is exactly a remarkable achievement. I think Mitt Romney is the person that we need in the White House at this particular time, and so I am proud to endorse him and proud to stand with all these great Georgians in doing so. Thank you.
Now, Governor Romney is expected to show up in Atlanta this coming Monday. His son is expected to begin campaigning here as soon as tomorrow. And Secretary of State Karen Handel issued a reminder that the deadline for advance voting and absentee ballots for Super Tuesday is tomorrow, February 1st. And a group of students from many of Georgia's major colleges and universities met at the Capitol to voice their concerns about climate change. Lawmakers Minu Hosseini has that story.
Students from schools including Georgia Tech, Spelman College, UGA, Agnes Scott, Emory University, Georgia State, Morehouse, and Valdosta State convened at the Capitol to lobby for renewable resources and energy efficiency.
This is something that will affect us for years to come. It's not going anywhere, and climate change is serious. State legislators, businesses, students, we need to come together, and that time is now.
Following their lobbying, the students will have a luncheon with legislators in an attempt to encourage them to implement state policies that address climate change. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Minu Hosseini.
And today was also Stop Violence Against Women Day at the Capitol. Various domestic violence and sexual assault organizations held a press conference voicing their concerns about violence against women and children in Georgia. Lawmakers' Keosha Jackson has more.
Victims and silent victims of domestic violence and their families joined members of the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the Georgia Commission on Family Violence, and the Georgia Network to End Sexual Assault in support of their efforts this legislative session.
We're concerned, highly concerned, with House Bill 413, which is actually a constitutional amendment proposition to cause English only as a language in Georgia. Many battered women aren't even allowed to learn English because their batterer is threatened by their learning English might make them become more independent. We're concerned about the bill, which is House Bill 89, which will allow guns to be carried in vehicles and in other public places. This is just one more layer of making guns accessible in a way and in a place where they shouldn't be. Victims of domestic violence could well be at danger and at risk in places that they normally wouldn't have to be so fearful.
Sean Paul, president of the Georgia Network to End Sexual Assault, spoke out against House Bill 908, which would apply residency restrictions for sex offenders.
Residential restrictions don't make our women and children safe. They cause offenders to have to
relocate, and every time they relocate, according to a Georgia study, they become 25% more likely to reoffend.
Ms. Paul also said that Ganessa is against HB 526, which would require parental consent for birth control, and HR 536, which would ban all forms of abortion. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Keosha Jackson.
The Georgia Nurses Association held its annual legislative day at the Capitol this morning. Lawmakers' Dana Abercrombie has that story.
Each year, the Georgia Nurses Association sponsors a legislative day which allows its members and student nurses from different colleges around Georgia to come to the Capitol to learn about the legislative process.
The major goal is really for, especially this morning's group of nearly 400 students, is for them to meet their legislators and let that legislator know that anything that has to do with nurse or health care, they are the person to contact.
GNA members went on to voice some of the major issues that are currently facing the organization.
We've actually graduated 600 fewer students in 2007 than we did 10 years ago, which is really a sad statistic. So we have worked with Senator Staten's office through the public hearings that he held during the off session, and so we're very happy that people are more taking notice of the fact that faculty salaries are too low to get enough faculty in place to teach more students.
We really need some help. We need not only nurses, but we need nurse faculty, and that is our main concern right now.
One of my biggest concerns is that we do not have enough educators here in the state, and their salaries are really, really low.
Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Dana Abercrombie.
Coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, Department of Transportation Board elections and legislation designed to make consumers more aware of the terms of rapid refund loans. Plus, it's the end of another legislative week, which means it's time to check in with Tom Crawford of CapitolImpact.com. We'll talk with Tom and have all the latest Capitol news. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, be sure to tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. You can also keep up with all the action under the Gold Dome daily on your local GPB radio station during Morning Edition, All Things Considered, and evenings at 6 p.m. on Georgia Gazette. And of course, tomorrow, expect to see red here in the Capitol. It's Go Red for Women Day as we try to, the National Heart Association actually will be educating women about the dangers of heart disease and how to prevent that.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Now stay tuned for Ask This Old House. Tonight's episode features lawn soil testing and identifying water supply pipes, and that program is coming up next here on GPB.
That's our broadcast for this, the 9th legislative day of 2008. I'm Wandy Lawson.
And I'm David Zelski. Have a great evening, everybody.
Good night.
Production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.